39 weeks, which makes me full term, and it has been kind of a roller coaster last week and a half. So last we knew, I was a little bit worried about what Dr. Andrews was going to say, because after my NST, my blood pressure was still really high, and Dr. LaRose was talking about delivery and seemed pretty convinced that Dr. Andrews would want to deliver her. Well, when I went to my appointment on Tuesday, my blood pressure was a little bit high, but a lot better. And so he was not worried at all. He said, you know, things are going pretty good, you know, you'll deliver sometime in the 39th or 40th week, and, you know, so I said, oh, you're not in a hurry to deliver, and he kind of looked at me like I was crazy for even asking. So yeah, he was fine with still waiting, and I did have him check since I was curious, and I was still the same on the dilation. So, but then I wasn't worried since we weren't worrying about inducing anytime soon. It wasn't very relevant. Then that Thursday I had another non-stress test. This time that was with the midwife, because Dr. Andrews was out of the office again, and that time the blood pressure was great. It was 127/80 something, and again the NST went great, and I also had an NST that Tuesday. Both of them were great. She was a happy baby. The midwife even said something like it was a perfect tape or beautiful tape or something like that. But then she came in and she started asking all these questions, like, does he have you on bed rest? How much water did you drink today? Did you take your medicine today? She was just like, you know, it's kind of like, what, why? And she said that my urine was +1, and she seemed very concerned about that. And I remember when I read the ACOG bulletin about preeclampsia, that +1 protein was like a precursor, like preliminary diagnosis for preeclampsia, and that the 24-hour urine was to confirm. So she ordered 24-hour urine and some blood work, and she told me to basically be on modified bed rest over the weekend and drink lots of water, and she was kind of freaking out, and, you know, if the baby moves less or you have a really bad headache, you need to go to the hospital. So the next day I went to the lab to turn in my pee and get my blood work done, and then fast forward to Saturday, and about 6:30 in the evening I started contracting, and I had a few of them, and I realized they seemed pretty consistent. So then I started timing them with my app, and they were about 3 minutes apart, and they were kind of strong. So I timed them for about maybe 30 minutes. They were still pretty consistent. So I drank a lot of water. I have this guy. I drank 2 of these. And then I decided to get in the bathtub to see if they would slow down or stop, to try to figure out if it was the real deal or not. So I got in the bathtub, and I was sitting in there, and they were not stopping. They were getting stronger and closer together. They're more like 2 minutes apart. So after about 30 minutes sitting in there, I got out, and I came out and told Justin, yeah, I think this might be the real deal. So then I started going around and packing up the last minute stuff for the hospital bags, and he went and changed his clothes and things like that. I texted my doula, and I wasn't hearing back from her. I tried to call her, and it went straight to her voicemail. So then I was getting a little worried. I texted the photographer while I was in the bathtub and said, I might be in labor, standby. She said, okay. So then after another hour, I was like, yeah, I really think I'm in labor. And she's like, well, when you gonna leave? And I was like, I'm not sure, I'll let you know. After about 2.5 hours of that 3 minute apart, Rebecca called me. I'm Facebook friends with her best friend, and I messaged her. I was like, help, how else do I contact her? And so then the friend messaged her mom and her brother and her husband. Her mom called
her neighbor, and her neighbor went over and told, I don't know, she said she had her phone plugged in, but it wasn't actually charging her phone. So then she's like, but she called me about a little bit before 9 p.m. and so we were talking, and she heard me have a couple of them, and at that point I needed to kind of breathe through them a little, and I could talk through them, but I didn't want to talk through them. It felt better to not talk through them and just shut up. So she's like, do you want me to come over? I'm like, yeah, actually, because I'm so confused. I really expected it to be a more gradual process, start out with them farther apart and getting closer together, for them to be so close together right out the gate. I didn't know. I was so confused because it was so early on. But I didn't want to wait too long, but I didn't want to go too early, and I just didn't know what to do, and I felt like having her there would help us better assess when would be a good time to go in. So she got here about an hour later, I don't know. But I also got a hold of my neighbor friend Natalie to watch Cal, so she's like, just let us know when you're leaving, and so I labored a little bit more with Rebecca here, and they seem to be getting a little bit stronger, a little more painful, and a little bit longer. So they were about mostly 45 seconds long originally, and then at this point they were about a minute long. So about 11:45 I decided I wanted to go. I was trying to get more annoyed with Cal, and just, I don't know, something told me I needed to go. So we loaded up everything. We got Cal over to Natalie's house. He was really excited to be there. He made himself at home right away. He didn't really care about saying goodbye to us. And then we drove over to the hospital. I was listening to my Hypnobabies track in the car, which had me in off switch, so my eyes were closed, and that was interesting. And as soon as I got there, I had to throw up. I threw up in the trash can and out front of the hospital. And then we walked in and got to triage. The photographer was there waiting for me. And we got into triage, and still contracting every 3 minutes. And the nurse was like, oh, you're doing really good. So she checked me, and I was a 3. So I was like, hey, I'm more dilated than I was before. It was like about 1.5 before, maybe 2. And so then they like just, took my medical information down, and all my information, even though I turned in some paperwork, I guess I didn't get into the system, so they were getting me into the system and everything. I hadn't taken my evening dose of labetalol yet, because I was kind of busy laboring, and I almost took it before I left the house, but something told me not to, and it's good that I didn't, because I threw up when I got there. But my blood pressure was high. It was in like the 150s over 90s. So Rebecca brought it to me. I took some, and then we saw each time they took my blood pressure, it was going lower and lower and lower. So like we could actually see it working in action, which is pretty cool. And then about a little over an hour after that, the nurse checked again, and I was 4. So they decided to admit me. And by the way, this nurse was really awesome. She was a little bit familiar with Hypnobabies, and she was just very supportive and awesome. So she's like, I got you a really good nurse. Her name was Lauren. I can't remember the triage nurse's name. It started with a K. It was definitely an unusual name. So Lauren came and got me. We got me into the hospital gown, and then we walked over to the labor and delivery floor. So we got me settled in the room. I peed in the cup. They got the IV in. They drew some blood. And I was still contracting about every 3 minutes, 2 to 4, but about 3 on average. And so that went on. That was about 2 in the morning that I was getting settled in there. Justin left and got some food for a while, and Rebecca left and got some food for a while, and I would just, sometimes sit on the birthing ball and sometimes be in the bed, and I just kind of, it wasn't so bad. I mean, they hurt a little, but it was definitely nothing major yet, even though they were pretty strong. And about somewhere in there, they just started petering out. I wasn't really noticing because I was talking, but I like looked up at the monitor and I could see, like, you couldn't see the things anymore. And the OB on call, it was a woman, I can't
can't remember her name. I think it was Dr. Sanders. And she came in and she's like, yeah, so your labor is kind of stalling, but we can't really augment you because you're a VBAC, and so if you want to try like walking or something, we can see what happens. So they set me up with the wireless monitors, and I went walking a few laps around, and as soon as I started walking, they started coming back, and I would have to like stop walking each time one would come on. And then I went back in the room and sat on the ball. Rebecca left to go bring her pumped milk to her baby, and I got into bed. They put me back on the regular monitor so that they could charge the wireless ones, and I listened to a couple more tracks, and I fell asleep, and about 7 a.m. The doctor came back, and the nurse said that my contractions had come back and they were 5 minutes apart, but they were definitely not as strong, and they checked and I was still a 4, so they discharged me and sent me home. And I had a few strong ones on the way home that I had to breathe through, but you know, it never really progressed. And after a while I went to sleep, and then when I woke up later that day, they were gone. And we went and picked up Cal when he woke up, which was at like noon, and they just never came back. I had a couple random ones Sunday. I went and got a pedicure. I had a couple more random ones Monday, and I lost mucus plug on both those days too. A little bit of blood, but just nothing. So then Tuesday I had my next appointment with Dr. Andrews, and he said that yes, I was like about 3.5 to 4 on the outside and a 3 on the inside. My cervix is always like a funnel. It always is more dilated on the outside than the inside. It was like this last time as well. And Dr. Sanders kept trying to say she was -3 station, and I thought that was really weird because she was always -1 the last time the Dr. Andrews had checked, so she had dropped a little bit more. And he said no, she's -1 station. He said her head is in front of the cervix is behind it and up a little higher, so she was measuring where the cervix was, and he's like, no, that's not how you do it. You're supposed to measure where the head is presenting, like the furthest the head is. So her head is -1 station. So she is good and locked and loaded pretty much. 0 station would be even better, but they consider -1 pretty well engaged. So now that I'm more dilated, he said I have a very favorable cervix. So if an induction becomes necessary, then that is at least out of the way. We are in a good spot for that. So the labs that were done, that the midwife ordered, were fine, he said. They also ran them at the hospital because they had me peanut cup and took some blood, and those labs were fine. There was actually 0 protein in my urine that day. So I definitely do not have preeclampsia, which was a big relief. And the meds are continuing to work on my blood pressure. It was only 133/77 at my appointment on Tuesday, so it's actually pretty good now. So he said things are going great. He's not worried at all. I told him how Justin was kind of worried about having a 3rd baby, since both these times I've gotten pregnancy-induced hypertension. And he said, no, I'm not worried about that at all. He's like, this is going great. I would have no concerns about that. So that was a relief too. So it's not out of the question. If the doctor, a very competent doctor, doesn't think it's a bad idea, then Justin feels better about it, and so do I. Not that I was ever worried about it, but it's nice and reassuring to know. And of course, it doesn't guarantee that I'll have blood pressure issues next time anyway, just because I had it the first 2 times. But I feel like it I don't think I'd be a good candidate for home birth, and I might not even be able to be seen by a midwife because of that history, but at least it's not a bad, at least it's not foolish to have more babies. So that appointment went great, and he's, again, we're gonna wait her out, see when she decides to come. And then I had another NSD at the end. That was, again, great. And I'm going for another NSD tomorrow, which is Thursday, which will probably be the day you see this. But yeah, so that's what the plan is we're just going to continue to do them twice a week just to be on the safe side. So really at this point, I doubt I will develop preeclampsia, so the only reason I would need to be induced is if she's like started not doing well in the NSTs. So as long as she's doing well, then we're just gonna wait. I've been going to the chiropractor weekly, keep things nice, and I have like random contractions here and there, but nothing really exciting happening. So it could be tomorrow or it could be 2 weeks from now. Who knows? But she'll come when she's ready to come. So that's what's been going on. So it's like I was happy and relieved that he wasn't worried, and then the midwife was freaking out, and then I was like, oh no, and I was scared again, and then it was happy, you know, so it's, but anyway, at this point I know, just need to not worry. It is going well, and it's going to continue going well, and she's still moving great, and she's still happy in there. Everything's going great. It was nice to go to labor and delivery, have kind of a trial run with everything. Went pretty smoothly, and I was actually really impressed. They are getting better with, you know, family-centered stuff. It's really important for them to do the 1 hour of skin-to-skin immediately following birth, which is nice. The nurse Lauren I had was amazing. She was great. I love her. I hope I get to have her again. The OB, not so much, but I don't have to see her again, because I asked Dr. Andrews if he was going anywhere else, because the past 2 weekends he was gone, and he's not going anywhere for 5 weeks, so he will be in town when Squish decides to be born. So I guess Saturday she just changed her mind. I guess she was like, you know what, no, I want to wait for Dr. Andrews, so that's what we're doing. So we're pretty ready for her, other than just continuing to keep the house as clean as we can. We've got everything else, all the essential things ready. We even have Cal in his own room now, and that has been going well. He's sleeping all night in there. He did great at Natalie's house overnight too. So that's what's going on with me. It's a little bit of a roller coaster, but things are good. We're both healthy. We're both doing great. Things are as normal as they can be with gestational hypertension. So we're just gonna keep waiting. Even in the comments, when do you think that Squish is going to make her grand appearance? Till next time, bye guys.